With his back house?
No, by talking to them.
Oh, I can't see. It was in my... Yeah, I met him at the... Yeah, it was the creamery or whatever. Yeah, I remember talking about Freedom Street though. This is Beach Plum. Yeah, I got it at Sam's. They have like 3 different weird flavors.
All right. I will call to order the Ravenna City Council Committee of the Whole meeting at 7 p.m. on today, October 18th. First item on the agenda is approval of Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of September 20th, 2021. Were there any additions or corrections to those? Do we have a motion to accept those as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is an ordinance to accept the Ohio EMS grant in the sum of $3,628.63. This was Public Health and Safety, Ms. Michael.
Yes, this is just, we talked about it, and it's accepting the money, no match or anything like that. It's just going ahead and accept the money.
Any questions on this item? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 3 on the agenda is an ordinance to authorize the mayor to apply for the 2021 ACAR placemaking grant. This is also Public Health and Safety.
And this is just giving authorization for the fire department to apply.
Any questions on this item?
And there is no match.
Thanks. Any questions on this item? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right. Number 4 on the agenda is approval to pave the South Freedom Street and add it to the 2022 paving schedule. This is streets and sidewalks. Mr. Harper?
Yes, we've been talking about paving or fixing South Freedom Street for some time now. So this is an attempt to get it into the budget. I know there are some individuals here that would like to speak on how we fix that section of the road this evening. Before we move forward with any particular plan at this time. So if there are people here that would like to speak on this project, please come up, state your name, address, and then feel free to express your thoughts and concerns.
And I would like to say something real quick. Today I went and knocked on every door on that part of Freedom Street myself. And everybody that I talked to, minus one person, all were in favor of keeping the brick. They were very concerned about the speed being increased if the brick is removed. They did state that the brick slows people down now, and there are a lot of new families that do live on that street with little children. They are very concerned not only with the historic value. Many of them did purchase that because of the historic value and the historic area. They liked that. That was a great selling point to them. But they were very concerned, and a couple people more that I talked to did not recall receiving the survey. I did talk to people that did send the survey in, and they did voice their opinion as well of wanting to keep the bricks. So the ones who couldn't make it tonight are going to be watching the meeting tonight. And I did state to them that I would speak up for them and let everybody know.
Thanks, Amy.
Also,
Well, thank you for doing that, Amy. That was...
Now, I also spoke to a couple of concerned residents that were also in favor of keeping the brick roads. And one of the things that was brought up was if we were to possibly be able to reuse some of the brick that is from Freedom, would we be able to possibly take some of the brick from Sycamore and re-brick that whole area so that the cost would be less, and then pave Sycamore since it's less residential? Is that impossible?
these are just ideas, right?
Yes, just ideas of ways that we could restore the brick road portion of Freedom.
What we don't know is the shape of the bricks when they're removed.
Right.
Before they're put back in. How many are going to crack in half?
Mm-hmm.
How many have rounded edges? That's the unknown. But a brick road could be put back with new brick if obviously there's a price tag associated with it. That's always an option too. I think that's more viable of an option than it is thinking we can use the old bricks. I can't even throw out a percentage of bricks that might be usable. I don't know.
Mr. Baker.
Go ahead.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, my name is Alan Baylog. I'm a resident of Ravenna. We lived on the corner of Spruce and South Freedom for 20 years. And my wife circulated the petition in the 70s to restore the South Freedom Street with the brick. Like I said, we live on Main Street in Ravenna now for 30 years. And we also own a couple, we own one business with two buildings on the corner of Cleveland and Highland. So nonetheless, I wanted to speak a little bit on the historic section of the brick road. One of the things that under history is once it's covered up, many of us forget about it. We lose it. We lose our history. In the last couple weeks, I've been lucky enough to run across an 1870 Portage County Atlas and a 1900 Atlas. And Ravenna doesn't look anywhere near like it did in 1870. We've knocked down many of our historic buildings and lost them forever. Forever. The other day, somebody gave me Mrs. Panelone's high times that she collected for 50 years. 50 years. And they had, most of us maybe saw the old Chestnut School. This is the first time I've seen a picture of the old Chestnut School. Kind of neat. Kind of neat. But once it's gone, we've lost that forever. In here, one of the people that was a finance director here at Ravenna that I worked for 4 years, Ron Hartley, accounting. I worked with him for 4 years. I did not know that he went by Ronnie Hot Rod Hartley. Yeah, Ronnie Hot Rod Hartley, hoping to get into a football game weighing 145 pounds as a walk-on in the Ravenna High School's football team. What I'm getting at is, history is for those that are interested in it, and without any history, I don't know where we go. A couple weeks ago, I had one of the seminars that I attended to maintain my CPA license was the director was Ralph Meacham, auditor of Mahoning County. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. He was the controller of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is his second career. He's around probably 70 years old. Well, nonetheless, I thought it was probably the best seminar that I ever attended in my life. Because he obviously with the Steelers, you have Rooneyism in the sense of maintaining a downtown district. Pittsburgh. They didn't have the deterioration of, say, Cleveland or a lot of the large cities. They maintained it and tried to keep the integrity of Pittsburgh. In his thought, with the money that they generate, each community got all kinds of money under COVID, which I didn't know. But discussing what to do with the money. Now I want this for the hospital. I want this for my road. I want this for your road. I want this for the senior center. And his philosophy is the common good. Common good. What's the common good? Roads, infrastructure, sewers, water systems. That is very expensive, and it also addresses people's needs. Now, what is the common good? Is it today's needs? I want my road fixed. I want this fixed. I want that fixed. I want my sewers fixed. Or is it mine now, or is it our future generations? I see it that we have future generations in infrastructure, in long-term needs. What do we want Ravenna to look like 20, 50 years from now? You know, what do we want? Now, I make no decisions. None. I'm just a citizen in Ravenna. I've got my thoughts. We've sacrificed almost all our money to maintain those two buildings on the corner of Cleveland Road and Highland to make them a little bit better
And
for
they're
future
beautiful.
generations.
Yes.
A lot of people I've run across, it's me. What do I want from me now? Okay? My wife is going to speak a little bit because she was instrumental in passing up petitions, just like Amy mentioned, and talking to each human being on Freedom Street. What do they want? They're citizens. What do they want? How do they envision Ravenna? And we didn't send out a blank, generic petition or whatever asking, please respond. We went house to house and talked to people. And like I said, I've got my thinking in regard to the future of Ravenna. I tend to think that it's your decision. You're entrusted with that responsibility. How do you envision Ravenna 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now? How do you envision? You wanted to see, when I moved here, we had 90-some% home ownership. It's changed a little bit.
Well, I appreciate the comments tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Karen Baylog and my husband. With 516 East Main Street in Ravenna, and as he mentioned, we lived on Freedom Street for a long, long time in the 70s, 80s, and a little bit in the 90s. Sometime in the late 70s, I'm not exactly sure of what the date was the first time that they actually seemed to try to do any repair on that street. And I have to tell you, the street is in worse condition now than it was then. Okay, when they took the bricks up, it was dirt underneath it. Okay, and then to fix it, they put in a layer of cement and put the bricks on top. Now, I don't know what they did that was wrong with it, but apparently, I don't know if it was the drainage or the foundation wasn't thick enough or what, but there were Kent State buses going down the street, and, well, you can see the condition of that street now. Okay. We've been in a lot of towns, and almost every town that we go in, the town takes particular pride in their historic district. And in those historic districts, they definitely try to maintain their brick streets. Okay? They add to the character and the charm of the town. Okay? And as Alan mentioned, once that's gone, they are gone. Okay? I really think that you should repair the street with brick. Okay? And do it correctly. Whatever correctly is. I'm not an engineer. I don't know. But it makes a difference. As Amy mentioned, it also helps with the speed because Route 88, the state route, ends right up there on the corner of Main Street. So, you know, if you go ahead and pave it, that's going to become a thoroughfare down through to Riddle and across town. And I don't really think that that's what you want to do. Okay. As he mentioned, I did a survey at that time, and I went around personally to every neighbor in the neighborhood, and it was 100% unanimous to keep the brick. And as Amy said, it's pretty much the same thing now. all the neighbors took a lot of pride in having a brick street. So I honestly think that you need to keep the brick streets, not only that one, but any others that are still in town, and keep them in good repair. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Haley. I live at 220 South Freedom Street. I was born in 1952, and all but 8 years of my life has been at that residence. My parents bought that house in the 40s, and I've lived in there ever since. So South Freedom Street, Brick Road is who I am. I'd be very upset to see it go. All right. Back in the, I think it was in the late 80s, like Karen, they wanted to put the new water line in, and it was, they were very close to doing the same thing. They wanted to take the brick out and pave it over. I did the same thing. I went and got petitions. I signed everybody up, and it was the same then. 100% of the people wanted that road to stay brick, just like they do today. So if you have any concerns about the actual people who live on that street, it ought to be given far more weight than I think the difference of cost between paving and putting rebricking. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the difference is, but from what that flyer was, it was something near about $100,000 from what I understand. Of course, I understand that's just based on not really knowing exactly what it's going to, but it seems to me that in the long term, that money would be well spent, given the fact that you don't have to spend money on maintaining that road with any significant funds in the future 10, 20, 30 years from now, because I don't know how much money has been spent maintaining South Freedom Street since that brick was laid, but I imagine it's been considerably less than what you would spend on a paved road of the same traffic flow and distance. And like we said before, I think it's time that City Council, and I know where I speak because I sat up there once before myself, so I know what you're going through and I know how hard these decisions are to make. But I think if Ravenna wants to start thinking about future generations, then this is a pretty darn good place to start. Because you're only going to be placing more financial burden on future generations by paving that road and repaving it until the curbing disappears like it has in a lot of these other streets in the town. And then you have to shave it all down and start over again. And that costs money. It costs money. I know it costs money because when they replaced the curbing on West Main Street, they did half the job. And they were supposed to do the other half a year, 2 years later, and that was 20 years ago, and it still hasn't been done because they can't seem to find the funds to do it. So if you're going to do a job, have the money to do the whole job and do it right, not do a half a job and then 20 years later still hasn't gotten done. But I digress. So I think it's important from a historical point of view. It's important that the city, if the city's going to be serious about maintaining the architectural value of its community, and if they're going to be serious about having pride in its historical significance that the city has and the assets that it has, then I think it's time that you started getting serious about the policies you're setting that reflect that, and the amount of money that you're going to put into making sure that, in other words, you put your money where your mouth is. You're going to talk about being serious about restoring historical integrity in this community, then show it with your actions.
I appreciate it. And to Matt's credit, I think we wanted to make sure we had, since this is an important issue, Freedom Street specifically, and I don't mean to cut anybody off if anybody else wants to come up and speak. But I think with this issue, because it's Freedom Street, because it's important, especially to the residents who are living there or who have lived there, we want to give enough of a runway for our engineering department to make sure they can find whatever company is going to come in and do the work, and then allocate those funds, by January, because that's our time that we want to incorporate this in the paving budget. So
Was there a rush to do that, to have it by January?
that was going to be my question for Bob, was kind of the,
Because last I talked to Bob, it wasn't, an important rush. You were just getting it. I mean, that was my question. And the other thing I want to say real quick is we took the time to send out surveys. So in the ones that did come back, they were pretty much universal on keeping it. So I guess too, with the survey and with hearing from the residents that do live on that street, why would we take the time of even sending it out when we heard back from them that this is what they want, and then, oh well, we got the surveys, we only got a few, we're still going to do it? What is the point of sending a survey out that we're not going to enforce?
I don't think we've ever heard from Bob that we should pave the road. I think it's up to city council. He's laid that out, that it's up to us to make the decision. So we just need to give him the runway to incorporate that into his plan for 2022.
I'm trying to nudge city council into a decision.
There you go. Yeah.
Because I've been with the city 21 years, and this is the first we're finally discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago, I started to put money aside, and that money ended up going to the police department roof. So then but when the mayor says, let's do it, we'll do it. And we're finally at that point. So, I put a budget together, my 3-year budget for paving. You guys received that. And one of my biggest concerns is the $300,000 to $350,000 that I'm showing may not be enough. So, if brick is the final decision, then we may have to phase this project in over a couple of years.
And would it be possible to do portions at a time if we had to?
Correct. Phase it in.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Okay.
what Nick had
But the
said.
most difficult part right now is finding a contractor that actually does this work. It isn't like an asphalt paver or a concrete street or a concrete paver company. They just don't exist around here, to my knowledge. So we're reaching out to see if we can find some companies, be it in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or wherever. And
I know it's not gonna be
not
easy.
mainstream
Right.
construction anymore.
No.
Right. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nick Diak. I'm at 328 North Prospect. I grew up in the house. It's one of the most beautiful homes in Ravenna. And I've been there since '06. I was able to buy the house back. Trying to get through it. So, you guys want to give me some levity? I appreciate it. But no, those high times, I picked them up at Miss Pamela's tag sale, and she really just gave them to me for a song. So I'd like to have each of you just take one home. That's what
Right, Nick, you're okay.
It's got a lot of passion behind this. Mm-hmm.
Oh. I don't want to waste your time, but I just need to point out, thank this guy.
It's okay. Talk about some of your ideas that you had. Just start off with the first one about,
I owe this guy.
it's okay.
You can tell him that these guys revived me from low sugars 70 to 90 times in my life. And that's fact. And, I know I felt like I could just get up here and not have such emotion, but
Is your sugar okay now, Nick? Because I heard the
Yeah.
beeping.
but
Well,
that's one of the reasons I went on my disability 4 years ago, and every scenario you can think of. Uh, uh, it caught up to me, and at work, home, and these guys were in my house dozens of times, and another hour or two, and I wouldn't, be here. So for them and my family, I'd like to think something good can come out of my life that's positive for the community. So I'll just tell you up front, if you can listen to how to pay for this, I think it's a little more simpler than you think. So I'd like to present that idea and show you this piece of brick. These are what you're going to run into when you start tearing up the road. Well, when they were doing North Prospect, this is what they were throwing away. Well, some of them are in my backyard. I don't know what I'll do with them yet, but I didn't want to see them thrown away. And this is a piece that could be reused for your street. It shouldn't be thrown away. That contractor that did that street, I watched him do all those spots, and it was like a work of art. They laid about an 8-inch base of concrete, and I don't think they ever did it. They do water lines, but they learned, and they had 5 guys, and they do a 10 by 20 spot. Only take a week and a half, but it got done, and every brick they replaced them with had a. If you need to come down North Prospect and see what it looks like with where the repairs were. There's chips on every brick. You're not going to find a pristine brick that they used. Very rare. But all them bricks, if they have a solid base underneath them, that road will last another 50 years at least. No more maintenance. So I think if you go forward with salvaging the existing brick, and you get enough from Sycamore, I think it could be done. If you come up short the last 100 feet and you have to buy new brick, deal with it then. So, how to pay for it? I texted Mr. Seaman today with the idea. I talked to Matt. And you would know, can you issue a bond on your levy money that you have coming in over the next 20 years? You might have to pay interest. So say it comes in at 300,000 or 400,000. You get it done within 5 months in the summertime. So you have to pay back the bond, $20,000 a year for 20 years. Is that a price that's worth it for you? Is that a feasible idea?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did like for the water meters recently and stuff. I mean, that's always a possibility. Yeah.
So in that respect, it's a non-issue if you're able to pull that off. The question is, do you guys think it's worth it? And I know finding the guys to do it, or that contractor want to do the whole street. Mr. Bowen was on top of that. He knows a little more about the logistics of it, but it's stuff that can be done. I don't think it's something that's a far-fetched idea. And
What about the wood there, Nick? You brought that.
oh, that's an old bleacher board from Brown Middle School. So I just dug this out of the closet. He pushed that in 1,000 times when I worked there for 20 years. And Bill Stone salvaged some of them. And I think Dr. Calvary replaced the bleachers with the modern ones. So Bill gave them to me last week, and Randy Knapp planed them all down. So something that could be repurposed. And, I think Jack Schaefer inspired me to kind of have a little appreciation for your city. So, is there any questions that?
I just wanted to say something. You made a comment that bothered me. You said that you didn't want to waste our time. And I know for me, I just want to say, don't ever feel that way coming and talking to us, because I appreciate hearing from people, hearing from the people that we are sitting here representing and sharing their concerns and their issues. If we don't hear from you, we don't know.
Right.
So it is not a waste of time for you to come up and share these things and to share your passion with us. That's important. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And that's a letter I just found on eBay from late 1800s of the courthouse. They're pretty pricey, but when Jack has, after he passed away, he had a tag sale, and I picked up a huge full-blown picture of the courthouse. And since then, I kind of started collecting postcards and want to integrate them in a mural. But it's very unique, so you can take a look at it. And I would recommend that you send the issue back to the committee. I'm willing to volunteer my time to give you ideas of what I observed on North Prospect. I think it's important for somebody that kind of witnessed what was going on.
Yep.
And appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got emotional.
No.
There's a lot of passion you have.
Don't be sorry. You needed to express yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks for
We
coming.
appreciate you coming, Nick.
Thank you. I think sometimes overall we forget the historic value that it means to a lot of people. We were having dinner at Guido's Friday, and I met a guy from Garrettsville, and he started talking with me, and he started talking about how much he enjoys coming here to look at our building and the architecture and the old buildings. And he's like, this, every time I look at it, I notice something different. And, you know, from living here your whole life, sometimes I think you take for granted what other people see when they come into our community. And when you are born and raised here, there are a lot of things that, like Nick, you know, it's close to his heart, that memories, like that was his street that he was born and raised in. And people that, like Mr. Haley, same thing. He was born and raised on that street. And that might just be a brick to some people, but that's their heart in that road. That's their memories. You know, that's a piece of their life. And I think history really has a lot here to play. So.
So can we just move this forward?
We just need approval.
Approval for,
This is approval to pave, so to add to.
so this won't go on November's agenda?
That's what you're looking for, right, Bob? It's just an approval to move forward with this plan.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't say we're tied into any particular plan.
The 2022 paving, to add this to the.
Yeah, I think we should do it and find the money somehow to do it right. Like,
Yes.
But it's which
So-
plan? That was the thing he wanted for us.
To re-brick,
rebrick it.
pave Freedom Street and add it to your 2022 paving plan. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So, are there any other questions from council in
So
regards to
we're
this?
looking at changing to redoing the brick, salvaging what we can, and having finding a contractor and a new quote to add into the budget.
But certainly there is a chance that salvaging what we can, we might have to replace it with all new brick, correct?
With new brick.
But we
Correct.
could do it in phases.
We can also do it in phases.
Okay.
Correct.
I think
Nick
we need
did
to
suggest
explore
that
all-
also
Yeah, he did.
when I talked with him, and I had not thought about that, but he suggests doing pieces at a time also, so that it could remain all brick. I think one of the questions you also have to clear up is curbing and the aprons, because that's a factor too. And I know you didn't look at those sorts of things when you were down there, but I think up on North Prospect Street, they did redo some aprons, or
Just the top half by the sidewalk where they did the water line.
okay,
But most North Prospect's curbs are pretty intact.
yeah.
There's a little more damage on Freedom, but even if you had to replace the curbing, you could still lay a nice concrete base and rebrick.
Oh, it can be done.
But I would just say, I'd invite you to come down and look at the repairs. I'll show you. Amy can give me my phone number. I will show you exactly what was done. And, that might help educate you on the process.
His home is quite beautiful
It
on
is.
the outside.
It is. Well, last we had left this in committee, we moved it forward. We were moving it forward with option B. So now I just want to clarify, we're moving it forward, but we're not considering option B. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Considering option A.
Okay.
And one thing that we were going to discuss tonight was the curbing and aprons because of the additional expense. That is something that has to be done at the time that the road's being constructed, correct?
Correct. If we put new bricks in, we will most likely affect the aprons. Thus, we'll have to replace the aprons. And just sawing a little piece of an apron off doesn't work with the residents.
So what's on here, Bob, then, this amount, that does not include the.
That does include.
That does.
It does, okay.
Correct.
But you believe that 332 tag at this point is going to be low?
I have a feeling it's going to be low, correct? From an email that, was it Amy that said?
That I received from Nick. Nick had some
Right, so that was
other communities that he sent me.
a price from 2016, 800 feet versus our 950 feet road was over $700,000. So that's what I mean. I'm concerned. Now, I don't know exactly what was done as part of that project, but
I think
That's all, just-
one of the projects, they had a grant where the city only had to pay 20%.
yeah, we don't, through our pavement funding, brick streets are not eligible, and that section of Freedom Street isn't either. So we have certain streets that are fundable through the federal government, and that's not a section that is. So that's why we get grants for certain streets, because they're on the federal register.
This is not one of them.
For other grants, from other, like historical grants from other sources other than,
Haven't found any, but there might be that I'm just not aware of.
but doesn't the city have a grant person? Well, we have it.
Not yet.
I'll make some calls to Manhattan and Lawrence, Kansas, where they did them projects and see what they ran into, what BS they encountered. And it doesn't hurt to get information.
Thank you.
All right.
Matt,
Committee of the whole, just as long as everybody understands with the switch that the cost will be changing significantly at this point as well.
Matt, I just want to be sure and clear, as we're talking about option A, it is up in the air whether it is reusing the old bricks or getting new, and the determiner is going to be the price, or are we looking at we're going with reusing the old bricks no matter what the price is?
I think at this point, the contractor will try to salvage
Okay.
as many bricks as possible. If there are bricks with chips that may be cracked,
Okay.
they may be able to be cut into a smaller section to still be used,
Okay.
which is what it sounded like happened on North Prospect.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that will hopefully keep the price down a little bit.
I'm
think
sorry.
At this point, it would be practical to consider any bricks coming from Sycamore, because I don't think that's a project that's going to be done next summer. So I don't think we can count on those bricks for this project at this time.
I did just want to mention too that I have been continually bringing up that we need to repave or fix South Freedom. During the entire time, that is the goal. The street is almost not drivable now.
Right.
It needs to be repaired. If we choose this way to repair it, great, fine. we find the money and do it. But my goal all along is we've had a number of residents that have contacted me that the street is almost undrivable. And we need to get the street back in shape where we can use it. So whichever way we do it, I'm fine. I just want us to be able to move forward with it.
Right, and I agree. I think city council is in agreement with you with that
Okay.
road needs repaired is
Yeah.
why we're discussing it
Okay.
now. So absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Well, if you want to delay until next month, I'll do my best to try to come up with some better numbers in general, and you can look harder and see other communities. I'm sure there's been brick streets done, but see the Kansas project, which is wonderful for pricing. I don't expect that contractor to come to Ohio though. So that's the difficult part.
What's
Well, there
the
is-
reference? I guess either we could leave it, send it back to committee to have another conversation, or leave it on for the next meeting, first, second reading, in anticipation that you might have some numbers.
Can do that, sure.
What's the
If we go back to committee, we'll still have time to meet the January
yeah?
deadline.
Right.
So
Okay.
I would be okay with that at this time.
Okay.
Give a little more time for a little more research.
With anticipation that we'll replace the brick with brick.
Right.
So, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, and thanks to everybody who came in and spoke tonight.
Real quick sidebar.
Do we need a motion to move it back?
As these residents discuss the historic nature of this town, you guys are considering design review changes. Keep that in mind when you listen to them and their passion for the historic district. When you make changes to the design review guidelines or the ordinance in general, just be cognizant of it. I'll stop there.
Thanks. Would be make you feel better if we made a motion, send it back to.
I make a motion that we send the South Freedom Street project back to committee.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to number 5 then. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for OPWC funding for the State Route 14 water tank project. This is utilities. Mr. Moskin.
Yes, this is money to have a new water tank built in a different location. Location at this time is completely undetermined, but the funding needs to be okayed for the mayor to have an application to proceed with this project.
Anything additional? Important infrastructure project. Any questions or additions from council? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 6 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for OPWC funding for the Pageants Waterline project. This is also utilities.
Yes, this is for the water line replacement on Page Street, and then the portion of Scranton would be between Mechanic and Main Street. This would be for next year. For the water service on these 2 locations, plus all of the hydrants to be replaced along these locations as well. And this is extremely important. This is critical for the water service and to keep the pressure as needed.
Anything else you want to add? Any questions from council?
No.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 7 on the agenda is an ordinance to appropriate $7,000 into the Waterline survey account for Pratt Street. Mr. Moskin?
Yes, this money is to go toward paying to have it surveyed along Pratt Street adequately for this water line project to be done in the future. And I believe this could be done next year. Is that correct?
That's the plan.
Okay, yeah, that's Plan A.
This project is a preliminarily awarded critical infrastructure grant. So I'm guessing 75% of the project will be paid for through the grant. So that's why we're trying to bump the survey up a little sooner before the weather breaks. Surveyors in town working, so jump over to this project and then we can start the design as soon as it's finished.
And then hopefully, if everything goes very good, and the weather holds off, colder weather, that way this can be finished, and then that water service can be accomplished as well sometime next year.
Any questions from council? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 8 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between Portage County Solid Waste and the city for recycling services. This is also utilities.
Hey, this is pertaining to keep our recycling service going the way that it has been and not an interruption in services for our recycling that gets done every 2 weeks at each resident and or whether it's commercial establishment as well.
Anything you want to add, Kay?
No.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, there was some back and forth from the law director in there. I don't know what position he has, Chris, but I hope we can clear it up just a little bit because obviously we ran into some problems this last time around. And the way I read it, it's an 18-month contract and then it renews for 12 months. But it's questionable what happens after that 12 months. And I don't know if the intent of the county is to leave it at that as a fixed, stopping point and then another agreement is put in place, or if they meant it as a recurring thing. I'm hoping it's a recurring thing because it's a good contract. I mean, it basically says they're honoring that fee, that one-time increase to $550 until July 2023. And in order for them to effect an increase, they have to let us know 90 days before the renewal of the contract. But it would be nice if it was a little bit more clear that it was recurring, that it was renewing every year, because it almost seems like it stops after that one 12-month extension.
And I did, I saw those emails
Okay.
with you, and so I emailed Dawn at Portage County Solid Waste, and she indicated that it would just be recurring unless, like, we would want to get out of it where.
Well, right. But I mean, the wording could be a little bit stronger that it is recurring because that word doesn't exist in there. And it almost reads like it's a one-time renewal. And I just don't want us to be, after July 2024, facing the fact that, you don't have a contract anymore. So anyway, I just hope that we can clarify that a little bit.
And I haven't heard back, have you, from either the assistant prosecutor or the law director?
Right, and he's followed up, so hopefully we can get that cleared up.
Okay.
But otherwise, I think it's a good contract to the extent that it doesn't impose any increases without clearly letting us know in advance.
All right. Any questions from council on this? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right. Number 9 on the agenda is a resolution of support for the Ravenna Downtown District Plan. This is planning.
So last week we had a visit from various constituents who are in favor of the district plan that was developed by the consultant Jason Kentner, commissioned by Main Street Ravenna. So we threw together this resolution, Bill Barber and I. So certainly we'd like to get the stamp of approval in terms of wording and how it's structured by our law director, but I'm not sure how other people feel about it, if they've read it, if there are any concerns. But what we'd like to do is pass this resolution on to the November regular meeting. And Mr. Barber's here. People have questions.
I guess before we get to the wording of the resolution, and if just to anticipate, if it could read the same way, a resolution of support for the Ravenna Downtown District Plan, a resolution endorsing and adopting.
I didn't write the agenda.
If it's just semantics, that might make a lot of council feel a little better. But if I could, I think, and I want to say a few things, then you can speak, Mr. Barber. So what we heard last week was that this was concept and ideas, which is great. I love this plan. I love looking at it, love looking at what Ravenna could be. And I apologize about using this analogy again, but this is the icing on the cake, so to speak. And, you still have to bake that cake. So what I'm getting at is that there's a lot of foundation that needs to be laid to get to this point. Love this. Love looking at it, especially across from the big dog, the renderings that Jason did there and the ideas. So concepts and ideas is what we were left with Monday. And then we heard that, well, there might be private entities that would put money into this plan should we have a resolution to approve or support or whatever the semantics may be. We also, just reading or hearing from members on CIC that they were ready to move forward with some of the plans that were in plan or whatever you want to refer to this to, the ideas or concepts that were in there, which concerns me. Not so much that I don't want to approve this. I don't want to be taken the wrong way. But it's sort of like the 2015 community plan where, we were told, and sorry, I'm pointing that general direction, but we were told last week that we were compared, I guess, this council with the 2014, 2013 council at the time, which is not the same. And I want to say that out loud, that what was referenced in that community plan is not who's up here today. This is an entirely different council. And so the lack of confidence, that bothered me as I sat here and listened to that. That we should work on the county with this plan. I think that's a great idea, because one of the things that was pointed out in this plan is a concern of mine. It's a concern of some of the commissioners, which is that on page 8, the notorious Veterans Memorial. So hearing from the county on what their ideas are, I think is a great thing. And then tying infrastructure money to this. And I was unclear as to whether it was infrastructure money from the city or state funding, federal funding, maybe it was all of the above that was tied to this. And if we don't approve this, and infrastructure money, and I'm being, over the top here, so I apologize, but that we heard that it may not be approved, the infrastructure money, if we don't agree to this. It's an underhanded threat that, and I'll let you go, Rob, but I got a couple more points. And so if we don't approve this was the gift wrapped thing that we should, a once in a lifetime thing that we need to approve. And again, I love looking at this, what Ravenna could be. I think that there's a lot of work to get to this point that we need to get to. And I appreciate the work, Bill, that you and the Main Street Board and Jason Kettner and Rob have put into this. And I've attended a lot of those meetings that you've reached out. I spoke with some of the chamber members today, which I think is sort of missing in this. And the thing that's glaring for me is, whether is Main Street, and this is where I'll get into the questions, and I'd like to have your opinion too, Mayor, on this, generally speaking. Is Main Street Ravenna going to take more of a focus on economic development, and how does this work into what with the chamber? Some of the members, they express concern that this misses the mark on helping the existing businesses that are there. And finding grants for the small businesses, attracting other businesses. So those were my thoughts. It's a lot that I wanted to get out there, but I sat last week because I wanted to hear from council. And then circling back, I think if it's a resolution to support, I think that would be a great start in passing this resolution.
The only comment I'll make is I wouldn't interpret the introduction of the infrastructure money as we won't get money if we don't do this. I think the point was, and I think you recognize this, that we need, in their terms like shovel ready, whatever, we need clear plans and objectives to make obtaining and spending that money efficient. And I think this is a means to do that, not the only means.
Yeah.
But I think that was what they were trying to say in support of the plan. Like, hey, we endorse and adopt this, we have something in the wings ready to go. It's not going to necessarily be replacing the memorial. It's going to be any number of things. And we tried to craft the resolution to say that it is, if you look at the second to last whereas, a plan that we're presenting on a conceptual basis.
Yes.
It's not a blueprint.
Yeah.
It's not the specifics in the document that you read that we're going to implement. But they're there because we want to have some examples to show people, well, we have a conceptual plan in place, and then you can come up with the creative plans that get to where this conceptual plan is going. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just one moment.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm going to reiterate, I like the icing on the cake, Andrew. There is a foundation that needs to be met before the beautiful pictures can be completed. Going back to the infrastructure money, Rob, we are shovel ready. We're almost there on infrastructure money with plans that Bob has already been working on stuff that's required and needed. So just to clear that
I didn't
up,
say that this was the only plan.
no, I'm just saying there are things that we have to do that we're mandated to do, that infrastructure money that is coming, we are prepared for it, we're ready. And those are projects that Bob has been talking to us for the last few months on. So we have to take that infrastructure money is for infrastructure, and there's important projects that we have to use on that. As far as the resolution goes, I'm in support of supporting the concepts. I do feel uncomfortable with the wording in the introduction, endorsing and adopting. I do feel we were explained that this was a resolution of support. So therefore it should read a resolution supporting the program, the project, or the plan, as well as in the last now therefore endorsed and adopted. We can't, we're supporting the resolution. We're not adopting a plan. It's conceptual. So I do feel that we need to have that worded appropriately.
Well, I don't know if the word appropriate is okay. It's a difference of opinion whether you want to use the word support, endorse, and adopt. I don't know if there's anything inappropriate about saying the city can endorse and adopt this. But I'm not disagreeing with you if your opinion is it should be support instead of those two other words. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But maybe Mr. Barber wants to address that and other issues.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. First off, with respect to the icing on the cake, I guess I would refer to the plan not as icing on the cake, but a framework. And the reason I say it's a framework, and you heard from Alan and Karen and talking about, what people look at in the historic aspect of things. Well, what we're trying to do also is where do we want to be in 5 or 10 or 15 years? What's that sense of place we're trying to develop? And that's where this becomes a framework, not just icing on the cake. The framework in trying to do all those connections. The framework in trying to put that character of place, into something concrete. If you have the placemaking down on Locust, or you have the connections from the parking lots to Main Street, how are we bringing people into this town to come and stay? That's the future. Those are the young people we want to have come in and stay in town. So that's that aspect of it. So I would argue framework is probably more appropriate than just icing on the cake. With respect to, and I'm not quite sure where the chamber was coming across with the idea that, business enhancement versus something else. The Main Street organization has four pillars that they use. And it's been successful across all the other Main Street organizations across the country. Mm-hmm. And there are, there's a design committee, there's a business enhancement committee. They all try to work together with the chamber. We're not trying to work things apart, We overlap in some things are the other ways around. But our focus is on that downtown area, and if we can increase that foot traffic into town, that's going to increase their possibility of bringing people in for businesses. So I'm not quite sure where they see we're stepping, out of some place, or we're covering something that shouldn't be covered.
Yeah, on that, I think for me, I wanted to make sure before we came in and moved this forward that they were heard. And so I reached out to a couple members on the chamber to make sure that their concerns, and we might be able to work with them in addition to this or outside of this, to work with the businesses.
This is for discussion. This is not a Main Street plan that sits just here.
Yeah. And
We've invited people to come into it. Matter of fact, we made a presentation to the chamber.
yes. And
So
it was,
it's not like we're trying to ignore people. We made presentations to them.
that wasn't my point. So I guess I wanted to get those points out for me, because I had some concerns about the wording, I guess, along with Cheryl,
All right.
in the title. Go ahead.
Well, let's step back to the wording.
Mhm.
Oh.
One of the things we like to be able to do in talking to the planning commission and to Bob and that is, when someone comes in, we have something that's strong enough to say, you know what, that's a good idea, but how does that fit in with what we're trying to do? How does that fit in with the general sense that we're trying to bring across? And all the plans, by the way, still have to go through all the regulatory aspects. So, you can talk about the courthouse lawn, and, we left the picture in there. I've made 2 presentations to veterans associations. I can tell you straight up that they don't like them. I can also tell you that we made presentations to other people within the county or within the city who do like that idea. So again, it's for discussion, for purposes of discussion. It doesn't mean that something's going to be done about that. But the idea is something that is strong enough that we can say, we're trying to develop this, and it withstands the test of time, so it's approved and adopted. To me, those are strong words that says this is the type of thing that we would like to do. This is the type of character we're trying to develop. These are the type of ideas we like to have. So to me, I know you understand the support versus, adopted and approved, or adopted and endorsed.
Endorsed and adopted.
Thanks. I can get those things backwards. So anyways, that's my thought on the wording. I mean, that's obviously up to you folks on how you want to word it.
So is it?
And I think with the word support, because the plan does have properties that are not owned by the city. It includes private properties, it includes county-owned properties, city-owned properties. We can't adopt a plan that forces other entities to do something, but we can support a plan and we can say, look, this is the plan that we support. We would like to see you include this in your renovations and changes, but we can't adopt something and hold someone's feet to the fire.
But what if we just changed the wording to say a resolution endorsing and took out the words and adopting? Would that work?
I don't endorse the conceptual idea. I don't mean to.
Not in its entirety, I don't.
No,
Well,
and the other thing that
It's not meant to be in entirety.
I understand.
Then why can't we use the word support?
Well, I'm asking questions.
And it's all right.
So
I'm trying to
endorsing is
figure
not
out.
is it just too strong a word?
It is.
So my question then is saying you're saying basically you want something that's strong, right? You want what we're presenting. You want it to show backing. So a resolution supporting this, that's not strong enough of a backing.
That's what you guys have to figure out. My sense was that I thought that something a little stronger than support would give that strength over time.
And I think also what we do with it, right?
Yeah.
So if we take this and we say we love this, it's fantastic, and then we set it on a shelf for 20 years, then that's not doing any justice either. So I mean, really, truly, whatever word is here, supporting, if we take this and we truly support it and we really encourage it and we really communicate with our, with community members and businesses about why we think this is so important, it doesn't matter what word is there. I mean, we have how many plans that sat on shelves.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly I think this is a great concept too, and I don't want to see that happen. But I think, that endorsing and adopting, that's a little rough for me as well. But I think supporting is how we show that support.
Right.
So I can support things in many different ways. I know, don't look wrong. It's gonna be we support the resolution and then we continue to support the resolution. We just don't vote on it and then leave it sit there.
Well, I agree with that 100%. But whatever the wording is, doesn't matter if we stick it on a shelf. I completely understand. And I think, but by the way, I mean we talked about this wording and we knew the wording was going to strike a nerve with people, but it was because of what you said. I mean, the stronger the wording, the more likely it's going to happen and not sit on a shelf, because it becomes a lot more convenient for the council to say, well, we just supported it. We don't really have to do anything about it. But if someone comes to us and says, well, what happened to that plan you adopted, that's a harder pill to swallow, to then say, well, we adopted it, but we put it on the shelf.
But I don't
That-
think we can adopt
Okay,
something
okay.
that has
But-
concepts in it that not everybody agrees with.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm not arguing that that the wording needs to be whatever it is. I'm explaining to you the thought behind the words.
Sure.
But I don't know that, and I kind of like the word endorsing better, because I think that's a middle ground word, as opposed to just support, which is a weaker word in my opinion. So I don't know. I'd like to hear from other council people. I'm certainly, if it's nothing else but a resolution supporting, then I'm fine. I would prefer it to say endorsing, but I just wonder what other people think.
I don't mind really
You would-
endorsing
Okay.
is actually, just looking at that would be okay. I think it's the and adopting that
Okay.
is, because for me we want to endorse, we want to be supportive, but we also want to keep in mind for the future. Maybe this isn't enough what someone wants down there. Maybe someone comes up with a better idea. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen down the road.
Doesn't preclude other ideas.
Right.
So what do other people think about the word choices here?
I would be okay
Okay.
with endorsing it.
Okay.
Okay, I have a comment about, go ahead, Amy, did you have?
I'm okay with endorsing it and supporting it. I mean, to me, they both. I mean, I know
When
endorsing.
endorsing and supporting.
Well, I know. I mean, I'm in support of the plan. I'm in support of what word do I want to say? I'm in support of how it looks, and I think it has beautiful ideas. However, at the same time, I don't want to say like I'm endorsing the veterans part of it, because that's one part that I've said straight up is a big red flag for me, that I can't, endorse that because the vets spoke. So, and that's something I'm very vocal about. So, but, to me, supporting and endorsing, kind of mean the same. But I do think that if we could, use a lot of those ideas, I think it would really beautify our downtown. And I do know the hard work that everybody has put into it. And I do think that it has a lot of beauty that would provide in our downtown. So, yeah.
So
I really didn't say either way, right?
you said endorse
Well,
and
yeah, I'm
support.
okay with it. Like I said,
You're
as
okay
long as the endorsing doesn't mean that I'm supporting the part of the veterans. Does that make sense?
No,
Because I support
no.
the plan, but I'm not endorsing the
We-
part of the veterans. That's minus that,
we
Well,
we
and I
specifically.
think that's something that when we discussed it before and we said we don't like that part of it, we would like to see that removed. It's still in there. That's part of the plan. The plan is the plan in its entirety. And that's something that we have to consider when we look at using, the words like adopt or endorse. We are endorsing, we're not picking it apart. We're not picking pieces of it. We're saying we endorse this as a plan. So we have to be careful.
right.
I mean, we could support.
That's the other part that scares me. Is
Right.
I
Look,
don't want
it
people
does-
to think that I'm
it-
endorsing that part of it.
Yeah, well, it says, whereas the district plan presents a conceptual basis for specific actions and examples of potential projects, but does not prescribe a particular course of action, recognizing that some of the examples, you just brought one up, presented in the plan may never be implemented, but
May
are
never.
included, but may,
It says
well,
may. Yeah.
May.
well,
I mean-
what was the word I had? Remember?
No.
I put the word will in there. Will never. Just to give you an example that we knew not everything would
Right.
be. So, but I mean, but they're there just to encourage creative ideas for improving downtown. So I think we covered that it's not a comprehensive plan. It's not a plan that has to be done according to the book, what's in there.
Well, and maybe where may is not as strong of a word as will never.
You want will?
So,
No, that's a completely different meeting.
so it's a completely different meeting
Right.
where may never be implemented, whereas you said before you had will never be implemented.
Some will never be implemented.
Right.
I
So
I
if we're
believe
going to
that.
go with stronger wording in the title in the final, then go stronger wording of will never
Okay.
in that.
Are you okay with that? Okay.
Okay, I have a question, the way the word infrastructure was used. infrastructure money was used.
It's not in here. There's no infrastructure reference in this
Well,
resolution.
it was way that it was used verbally.
That was just to, I think
The
that was just to show
infrastructure
how
money-
this could be, how the district plan could be used.
Yeah, but infrastructure money has nothing to do with landscaping or anything of that nature.
I don't know.
That's my
if it's
point. So I'm curious why that phrase was used pertaining to this project compared to infrastructure money that can be used for actually infrastructure that are plans that are down the road.
There would probably be a question for.
That's why I'm
person
asking this
that-
now.
But that would be, the person that shared that particular piece is not here.
Well,
So, and I think we only heard that from, I believe it was Peggy that talked about the infrastructure. The funny.
Well, I mentioned infrastructure
Yeah,
money
you
too. My
mentioned-
sense
Oh, did
is,
you? Okay.
my
I'm
sense, and
sorry.
I'm not an expert in infrastructure money. My sense is if you take a look at some of the stuff you want to do, maybe done in the alleyways, some of the widening of the street or widening of the sidewalks and putting the pavers in the alleys on Hickory and Cherry, if you want to do North Cherry, South Cherry, either one of those. To me, that's what I'm thinking about in terms of infrastructure
Okay.
money.
okay.
And the same thing if what was talked about, widening the sidewalks on Chestnut and in front of the courthouse, to me, that's infrastructure money, the same thing in front of the Phoenix building. So if that's an incorrect use of term, that's on me.
And I should have asked last week, just to clarify. But yeah, Mr. Calfee, do you?
I would just like to go back and ask again, what is the purpose of the resolution and who is it meant for?
It's meant for the city of Ravenna.
I mean, who is it? Okay, we passed the resolution, but we're wanting it to have an effect on someone. Who is it we're wanting to affect by passing the resolution? That's
The city.
Yeah,
we're passing a resolution to affect ourselves.
In a sense, I guess. I don't know exactly.
Well,
I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at.
Well, what I'm getting at is we passed the resolution. Is it to spur some other people to action?
We
is
hope so.
Is okay.
So, for example, I mean, if this has the what's the right word? Stamp of approval. Okay. Well, see, I wanted to avoid those existing comments.
Stamp of support.
A stamp of approval by the city, and maybe the city even has some. Let's say there's infrastructure money that applies. Let's just say, and a small project goes in place, and then maybe some other entrepreneurs in town are willing to invest. Maybe the township will throw in some money. Maybe the county, part of the properties that they have control over. So yeah, I think that has the. So if you're asking for effect, I think it puts the city in the driver's seat in the sense that we have a plan. Conceptually, it may not be the pictures in the plan may not be what happens to some parking lots. It may be something that somebody else comes up with that fits into these ideas. And so it might have the effect of having other people contribute, because I don't know that the plan is that the city's going to fund changes throughout this plan. It'd be great, but I don't know if that's a reality.
Well,
Is it more of
this plan affects a lot of different properties. We've
course.
already talked about and discussed the municipal lot and adding landscaping to it to improve, that goes right along with this plan. We actually brought up this plan when we discussed it. So if we're supporting and we lead by example and we start with our municipal lot and we're adding landscaping to it and improving it as per what the plan is, we can't dictate what other private property owners or even the county does. All we can do is say, well, we've done this and we've implemented this project. But I think support by actions, by looking at the municipal lot and adding landscaping and making it more presentable, that's showing our support by actions. I don't think that we need to adopt, and personally, I don't think we need to endorse. I think we can support the plan and say that we support it in projects moving forward, especially the ones that we have control over.
So
Keep in mind, when people come to the planning commission, to me, that's the perfect place to introduce this to the contractors or the people doing projects.
Right.
Just let's take the project going on over the hill down here. They come into the planning commission and we don't dictate to them, but we can tell them, how are you going to design this and lay it out so that it's attractive? And if they say, well, we'll do whatever you want, then we look at the plan and give them some guidance from what was there. To me, I see the planning commission in a spot to be able not to enforce any particular thing on people, but show them this is what the city would like to see when this is done.
We were taking a straw poll here, and I counted 4 endorse. I didn't get a wording from Paul or Tim.
I think support is fine with me. I think a lot of it pivots on the last paragraph that says that it's therefore resolved, whether we support, adopt, or whatever, this plan as a conceptual plan for future improvements to downtown. I think that's the important part of the whole resolution. And with that, I'm fine to say support, endorse. I'm okay either way with it. But it says the important thing that we are supporting or endorsing or whatever a conceptual plan for future
Well, that's what we
improvements.
tried to make it so. Christine, what was your word preference if you had one?
Endorse.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, I nerdily looked up the definition of endorse.
Oh, do it.
Giving one's public approval or support to someone or something.
All right.
So I'm good with endorse.
Just some
Can we, I mean, it's a compromise. We're taking the strong word adopt out.
Yeah.
Is that okay
Yes.
with? I mean,
Yeah.
I want this thing to be I want consensus. I don't want people to feel left out. I don't want to feel like hey, this isn't really what I want. And so wording matters to a certain extent, but I think endorse may just be the middle ground where we can live comfortably.
Yeah, I'm not in complete agreement with endorse and adopt. To me, the way this is presented, since there's a lot of things that seem to be vague, if I had to pick one, I would have to go with the lesser of support, because there's so much that's vague, and it was already mentioned there's different, as an example, city and or county parking lots, things of that nature. So that's my belief on that.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's vague because it's a conceptual plan, correct? I mean, we're not going to have, this is exactly what we're going to be doing because that's not the idea behind this.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, just like I mentioned, the idea of infrastructure money, well, to my knowledge, infrastructure goes a lot deeper than aesthetically on certain streets or curbs, things of that nature. Infrastructure, we had an infrastructure project in here many years ago. One of the main things that went for was infrastructure. Main Street was tore up quite a bit to replace the water lines underneath. I'm not going to go into all the detail because that'll take too long. That's a chunk of infrastructure right there. Things of that nature, valves, and not aesthetic things.
I don't consider this all aesthetic. I don't.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
everything was aesthetic.
Sure.
I'm not saying 100%.
Well, all right. I mean, it's all good discussion. I
Yes.
appreciate when everyone has a stake in this. I just want to make sure, is everyone okay if we just said a resolution endorsing the Ravenna Downtown District Plan and then changing that therefore it be resolved that the district plan be endorsed by the city? And I will make the change from may to will in that other thing, if that's okay. Is that satisfactory to move this forward, aside from any input from the law director who might have some technical reason to change the wording? Are you okay with it, Andrew?
Yeah, she cleared up the endorsement or supporting, so semantics
Okay.
at this point.
So how about you, Mr. Barber?
Well, I'm happy, that you guys come to a conclusion, and we can be able to go forward with it.
Okay.
The idea, and Cheryl, you made a good point, we covered a lot of non-city owned property. And the whole idea and some of that is we notice in other cities on how they address things like parking and how they address things like moving people around. So we wanted to put that out. And again, it's a framework. And you'll get some people might want to do that and some who won't, and that's okay. But it brings the idea forward so that people can at least think about it and talk about it. And it also talks about then developing that partnerships, because it's the partnership between the city and the county and the township and the business owners as well and the property owners. So if we can help explain that, the benefit of those partnerships, I think it gives us a little bit of an advantage in trying to keep that framework there. Again, the whole idea is what can we do to help revitalize the downtown area, bring new people in, develop that sense of place, that sense of character that's going to attract some people, and where we'll be in 5, 10, 15, 150 years from now. Yeah.
If I could just underline it too.
150?
No, the council supports then sounds like this resolution. So I just want to, I want that to be the takeaway. We've had conversation tonight. I know that things get twisted, but I appreciate all the work that you've done. Obviously, Julie has done with Main Street, and Dominic. I think Dave was here. Who am I forgetting? Diane and Peggy. And even Nick spoke last week. So I appreciate all the work that you guys have done since the beginning of the year and probably further back, all the events and reaching out. So thank you for getting up and speaking in favor of this and listening to our concerns too.
Well, thank you for allowing me to do that. And I really appreciate all the input. And again, it's nice that Amy was able to help us get the right connection to talk to the veterans groups. So that helped out a lot.
And thank you for doing that.
I was happy to do it. We kept wondering how to do that. So I really appreciated that a lot. And thanks everybody else who'd come to the meeting and given us their feedback.
All right, move forward.
I hope so.
Do you want to?
Well, it's a resolution. We move forward to the council meeting, I guess.
Okay.
And we're still going to have to, I'll make the changes and publish, send them out. And I'll make sure that Mr. Semino has a look at it too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. All right. Number 10 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the approval of the CRA for 228 South Sycamore Street. This is Community and Economic Development.
Yes. The state had approved the expansion for the current CRA, and this is for the redevelopment of 228 South Sycamore. They have an estimated amount of $11 million in renovations. They're asking for 100% tax abatement for 12 years, and it's going to be mixed use with commercial, retail, and condo/loft type residential. Am I missing anything there?
No, and that's for sale.
Yes, for sale residential.
Not for rentals.
I think isn't it, maybe I'm remembering this wrong. I think the overall project's 11 million, but the tax abatement is 8.5.
Yes, correct. The tax abatement amount will only be about 8.5 million, where the full renovation amount is estimated to be about 11 million.
Any questions?
The committee did meet before this, the housing committee, and passed the plan that he's got here. This is the same gentleman that did the old even flow building that is now going to be Children's Advantage, is having an open house there next week. And they're moving in, and he does these things. He comes in and he invests his money in it, and then he turns them over. He isn't building this for his long term, but it took a little while to find the tenant for the even flow building, but this guy's seems to know what he's doing, and he likes working in Ravenna. So.
Any other questions, comments for council? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 11 is an ordinance to appropriate funds not to exceed $3,000 for the FSM, Full Spectrum Media, to create a community survey. This is sponsored by Information Systems.
So this is something that came about at our communities, what is it? Health and safety committees. And we had talked about doing a safety survey for the city. as we looked into it some more, felt that it would be more beneficial to do a community survey just to get a baseline. I think, obviously we saw tonight one way for our community members to come and communicate is to come to meetings. We get phone calls, we get emails, but this is just another venue for people in our community to kind of give us some feedback on things that we need to improve, things that we're doing right. So Spectrum is prepared to help us do this, and for that amount not to exceed $3,000.
Right. And those questions will still go out. Is that from you to?
So I'm going to email once it goes through all this. I'm going to send an email out to all the department heads asking for feedback as far as what they would like to, what feedback they've received from community members, and go from there. Yep.
The recreation, Judy did a survey. It's been a few years ago, but they got very good feedback from it on that. So I would expect you to have the same results with this for the whole city.
That's good to hear.
Lots of people wanted a pool. Is that in the budget?
They still do.
Yeah.
They want their splash park. Yes.
All right. Any other questions from council? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Okay. Well, that is it on the agenda for this evening.
Dennis wouldn't feel too good, huh?